In December of 2013, Vice News went to the Central African Republic to try to understand an underreported conflict that was descending into what the United Nations called complete chaos. The week before we arrived saw some of the worst violence, with hundreds killed in the capital of Bangui. France and the African Union, already with a small troop presence, rushed in more soldiers to try to keep the peace. What started as a rebel coalition overthrowing a corrupt government was now becoming a conflict split across religious lines. In a small, mostly forgotten country in the middle of Africa, we witnessed a major turning point in the conflict. One that would lead to horrific ethnic cleansing. The Central African Republic is a landlocked country smack dab in the middle of Africa. Despite being full of natural resources like gold, diamonds, and uranium, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. After being ruled by France for decades, the country gained independence in 1960. Since then, it suffered one coup after another, in no small part due to the meddling of neighboring countries like Chad and Sudan, as well as its former colonial master, France. In 2003, François Bozizé seized power and began a 10-year reign of incompetence and corruption. Different rebel groups rose up, and by the end of 2012, a number of them formed an alliance called the Seleka, a mostly Muslim rebel coalition led by Michel Djotodia. The current conflict really took hold in March of 2013, when the Seleka overthrew Bozizé's government and set about terrorizing the country, raping, murdering, and looting. Djotodia declared himself president in April, and then proved either unwilling or unable to reign in the Seleka, the very people who helped bring him to power. In response, mostly Christian self-defense groups, called the Anti-Balaka, formed and started fighting back. Civilians were caught in the middle, as the fighting grew increasingly sectarian. For the past week, residents of Bangui had fled to the airport, hoping that the heavy French troop presence there would keep them protected. We're at the airport refugee camp right now. Refugees are still streaming in and out. It's really, really hot out, something like 90 degrees, and there's really no shelter in there. They have limited amounts of water, limited amounts of food, no medicine. We've heard already a baby died of malaria. Others are suffering from malnutrition. There's still a lot of fear here. You can see behind me there's a checkpoint, and people are armed with wooden clubs and machetes, and they're checking everyone that goes in and out to make sure they're not Seleka. They've said that at night the Seleka have tried to make incursions into the camp to kill more people. Doctors Without Borders, employing mostly Central Africans actually living in the camps, was the only group helping. What are some of the obstacles you guys are facing here? It just seems like you're completely overwhelmed with tons and tons of people and there's not that much help.
That's exactly the obstacle. We're the only medical facility in this camp and there's 33,000 at least. The situation is really severe. They don't have anything. They don't have water, they don't have latrines, they don't have food, they don't have shelter. They're sleeping on the ground. 30,000 people in the same spot with nothing.
And how many people are there here from MSF?
We are 6 international staff and about 20 local employees here in the camp.
And how many doctors?
3 doctors.
So there's 3 doctors for 30,000 people here right now?
Yes.
And no help is coming?
As far as I don't know. It's pretty unacceptable. It's not like they can't not know that there's 30,000 people right next to the airport. So I don't know why they're ignoring these people. They will not go anytime soon. They're saying they're still afraid. They're going to stay for a while. That same day, Doctors Without Borders released a controversial open letter criticizing the lack of response from the United Nations humanitarian system. Things in the airport camp were bad and getting worse, and we wondered how others were coping. We had heard that makeshift refugee camps had sprung up in churches and mosques, so we headed to a local church called the Monastery of Bliss. Brother Yellen Walongo now found himself caretaker to thousands of displaced and terrified people.
Donc sensiblement, j'aurais pu dire que vous avez entre 12 et 13 000 maintenant. Et dans la soirée, avec tous ces gens qui continuent de venir dormir, vous pourrez facilement monter à 17, 18 000. Bon, là, on a commencé à avoir de l'aide humanitaire. Ce n'est pas encore assez, mais on fera avec ça.
Do you support the French troops coming in here? Do you think it's a good thing?
Tout à fait. Ils sont accueillants, c'est avec joie que la population a accueilli leur présence. Donc on attend que davantage ils se déploient et que voilà, les gens puissent rentrer chez eux sans craindre quoi que ce soit de jour et de nuit, et qu'ils puissent aller au travail, qu'ils puissent vaquer à leur occupation, qu'ils puissent avoir à manger et dormir chez eux et non pas dans cette boue-là. Voilà.
Many people told us before this fighting that Muslims and Christians in Bangui lived together as neighbors. Why did it happen so quickly that there was fighting amongst these people, that they turned against each other?
Alors, pour ça, je vais être clair. Ce que vous avez entendu depuis longtemps, comme s'il y avait un conflit entre musulmans et chrétiens, c'est du pipeau, c'est du faux, c'est de la récupération. Il n'y a jamais eu dans ce pays depuis des années un combat religieux.
The Central African Republic didn't have a history of religious conflict, but the recent rise of the Seleka, made up of mostly Muslims, had triggered a lot of anger in the Christian majority population and given birth to the anti-Balaka, who blamed the Muslims for the Seleka's actions. Resentment was brewing. A local named Loren staying at the church told us he now felt betrayed by his Muslim neighbors.
Mala fana ye ingotere so ka fulu parce que ala kola la yeda parce que tout zo la so si yanki sala alondo par ala kukundo tala we si laso iba shonida.
And in the streets, we were hearing more and more talk of religious hatred. Reconciliation seemed a distant thought, despite a heavy foreign troop presence intent on keeping the peace. It was clear that something was changing, and that something bad was building. We're in PK12 right now, which is one of the most tense neighborhoods. That's a Muslim neighborhood right next to a Christian neighborhood, so there's been sporadic fighting, especially at night, looting. We came up on the scene and there was a guy bleeding heavily from his leg, machete attack. You can tell us what happened here.
The person has suffered too much for 10 months now. Killing, stealing is too much. It's chaos. And because all weapons have not been taken from the hands of these people. And there is a need to go in each sector, in each house, to look for a weapon. This is what is the real danger here. As for the problem between the Christian and Muslim, we try to quieten the situation.
Reconciliation.
Yes, I have lost my own brother last Thursday.
To the fighting?
Yes, if I was a man of anger, I could take any gun, any never bomb, kill everybody. But I will not do it.
The French had spent the week trying to disarm the Seleka, but many still had their weapons. At a nearby checkpoint, French soldiers, as well as African Union troops, who were part of a multinational peacekeeping force called FOMAC, tried to keep more violence from breaking out. Within FOMAC, there were a large number of soldiers from neighboring Chad. Complicating matters, the Seleka had a large number of Chadi mercenaries in their ranks. Locals had started telling us that these ex-Seleka mercenaries had recently started blending in with the Chadian FOMAC to avoid being disarmed.
On le sait, calmez-vous. Calmez-vous, on le sait.
You were telling us that wasn't FOMAC that was rolling by, that troop of cars, that was Seleka. How do you know that was Seleka?
Les Tchadiens qui étaient responsables de ce désarmement, et par la suite, on voyait les Seleka infiltrés dans ce processus de désarmement à l'aide des brassards des FOMAC qui portaient. Donc c'est à partir de là que nous avons su, parce que c'est des Seleka, c'est des personnes qu'on les connaît.
On the other side of the neighborhood, Muslim civilians now feared for their safety.
As population ti ati bangi kwa aga tono ennemi nando ti kwa a population ti bangi kwa aga tono ennemi nando ti petit tambla ti on yope inguru ti après barrière ge ikiri.
Here, it was the anti-Balaka inspiring terror, not the Seleka.
Les anti-Balaka, ils connaissent pas le gouvernement, ils connaissent pas le peuple. Donc ils sont venus faire le massacre. Donc le massacre partout.
Didn't this conflict start, though, more from the Seleka coming in, causing the conflict, than from the anti-Balaka?
Donc le problème, c'est pas le gouvernement et c'est pas les musulmans ni les chrétiens. Les anti-Balaka, c'est eux qui sont commencés dans la ville. Donc après ça, ils ont amené la force française. La force française pour désarmer les Seleka. Après le désarmement, ils n'ont pas désarmé les anti-Balaka. Et les anti-Balaka, après, ils viennent tuer les musulmans.
The attempted disarmament of the Seleka had allowed the anti-Balaka to go on the offensive. The violence showed no signs of stopping, especially in Mesquite, another religiously mixed neighborhood. Even African Union troops seemed powerless to stop the anti-Balaka attacks, as we would soon find out.
À présent, mon frère, presque 5 personnes à l'intérieur, mais je ne sais pas leur sort.
Et maintenant, ils sont disponibles là-bas?
Ah, ils sont là toujours. Il est en train de... Hein? Oui. Il est en train de garder notre maison, et puis ça passait.
Oh shit! Stop, 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 stop. Fuck. Fuck. We're in a neighborhood called Mesquite. We showed up and there was a Muslim man complaining he had been beaten by the Christians, and we followed Fomac in, and a couple of RPGs went off right away, so they backed up. And I guess they're waiting for reinforcements and they're gonna go back in, but definitely really, really tense in this neighborhood. Muslims were now finding themselves increasingly targeted. Mobs of young Muslim men now stalked the streets with machetes, forming their own defense groups against looters and the anti-Balaka. And many were angry with the French and African Union troops for what they felt was a lack of protection. And Khalid, what's happening here this morning?
This morning, I think one of our brothers has been killed by anti-Balakas. You know, they are everywhere in this district. They have, materials in order to kill Muslims. Since the coming of French soldiers, just to disarm Selekas and anti-Balakas. They are now in this district.
What we were witnessing was a major turning point in the conflict, one still playing out now. The attempted disarming of the Seleka had put them on the defensive, and Muslim civilians were now left increasingly vulnerable. The anger created by the Seleka would now be directed at them, as would the thirst for vengeance. The Seleka, though weakened, would also not be deterred from continuing to brutalize the people of the Central African Republic. The French and African Union troops were overwhelmed. The next day, we followed a Muslim funeral convoy to a burial site. The mourners needed armed military escorts to bury their dead because they feared attacks. The night before, the anti-Balaka had attacked a Muslim neighborhood, killing 6 people. We're standing here in an unmarked graveyard on the outskirts of Bangui, where 6 Muslims are being buried after they were killed last night in the PK5 and Kombatan neighborhood. We're told that 2 of them, a father and son, were killed not far from French troops.
On est dans les quartiers.
On voit les gens sortent avec les machettes, avec les fusils. Il y a beaucoup de notre famille, ils sont dormis à la maison. Dès qu'ils sont sortis, ils ont trouvé les morts devant les portes. On a vu beaucoup de gens qui sortent avec les vitesses. Ils ont trouvé les morts, même dans les routes. On a trouvé beaucoup de morts des musulmans sur les routes.
The Seleka had inspired such a strong level of hate that innocent Muslims were now being butchered as revenge by the anti-Balaka. We'd seen the trauma the Seleka had caused to the people here and how it was now playing out. We wanted to talk to the Seleka. What had they hoped to accomplish when they rose up? Luckily, we didn't have to look far to find answers. General Abdel Kader Khalil, President Joe Todia's right-hand man, was staying at the fanciest hotel in town. He explained why he had risen up against the former government of Francois Bozizé.
Problem ni Bozizé na amolengetilo na entourage lo amoko droni na otage depuis 13 ans. Tongana moke centrafricain si moke ti village lo ape moko warakwana ati kodrosape. Moke centrafricain si moke na ati rastilo gbayape moko warakwana ati kodrosape même diplôme ti moni asiati malette.
They had a long list of grievances. Many were angry because they felt like the northeast of the country, which has a high Muslim population, was increasingly marginalized, and that Bozizé was grossly incompetent.
Et ni là, en tant que centrafricain, l'ondo contre le président Bozizé, si il sera bombiti UFDR, soit que Union des forces démocratiques pour le rassemblement, mais que deuxième vice-président ni. Nombre de c'est les quoi a 5,000.
Although there were sporadic rebellions against the former president since he took power, the Seleka really appeared on the scene in December of 2012, when a number of rebel groups formed a loose coalition and started taking over territory. Aided by Sudanese and Chadian mercenaries, the Seleka eventually overthrew the government in March of 2013. What do you think will happen now? Are you fearful that they will try to remove the president from power?
Titenaga zilo nangangu tonso a petit marchap. Et gouvernement de transition déjà dunya mobimba ye dans le titene amuna lo beniketengoy. Le passé ni le organiser élection libre et transparent tous centrafricains. Maintenant français. Atena ke zilo nangangu lo kenazo pas moins de 5,000 hommes nangombe na territoire.
Bozizé hadn't exactly run the country well, but the Seleka had been even worse once they took power. At a nearby base, we met another high-ranking Seleka officer, General Yaya, as he lounged around with his men trying to avoid the French patrols. He tried to convince us that the real Seleka had been on their best behavior since taking power, and that the true criminals were the anti-Balaka.
Akembeni parti titene atene tel parti et tel mission à présenter tel parti. Non parti adapté. On est considéré anti-Balaka comme banditisme. Alors beni bandi aïti tene a fa datizu et puis ala ke fa a civil a ke contre ala visenga beni gouvernement.
When we talk to people in the streets, both sides are very angry. In the neighborhood like Mesquite, they tell us that the anti-Balaka are looting, they're stealing, they're killing people, civilians. But then when we talk to people in other neighborhoods, they say that they are doing this because for 9 months, the Seleka was doing the same to them. What is the situation with that, and how can you make peace when both sides are so angry?
Et puis, mokirna encore. Sola maintenant, in Baïsara. Actel na yati 7, 9, 8 jours so. Mbeni Seleka ako, alinda kape. Ka inji même swati zwapi yiso agana atene seleka la afazu seleka la muitizu abandiso iwaralagi na bangi abandiso ala la tranquillité entre ala kozu mais comme seleka ni agawai ala pour fouter comme kodroni aduti en règle.
General Yaya accused the anti-Balaka of the same sort of indiscriminate attacks the Seleka had been doing for so long. We wanted to know how the anti-Balaka would justify what we have been seeing. We just had to find them. Finally, a group agreed to meet us in a neighborhood known for being an anti-Balaka stronghold. What do you think of what's happening in Commandant? People are looting shops, they're going after all the goods, and they're stealing and looting and everything. Why is this happening?
Vous savez que dans toute chose, il y a des malfrats qui sont là prêts à agir donc pour leur propre intérêt. Et comme on ne peut pas qualifier de la malfrat, mais parce qu'ils se sont pillés bien avant par les troupes Seleka. Raison pour laquelle eux maintenant, ils veulent en revanche piller ceux qui les ont pillés l'autre jour. Vous avez vu? Ils ont pillé maison par maison quand les Seleka sont arrivés. Ils sont pillés maison par maison. La raison pour laquelle les jeunes maintenant ils sont mécontents. Ils veulent maintenant en revanche piller également les biens de la communauté musulmane.
The anti-Balaka were getting stronger and more aggressive. We heard whispers of a coup. Everyone was wondering when they were going to attack, so we decided to ask them. The anti-Balaka were lying in wait at camps scattered around the outskirts of Bangui. Shortly after we met the group in the city, our fixer came through and got us access to some of the camps. Everyone was wondering what they would do next. The first camp we went to was at an old school. Fighters lazed about, some armed, some stoned, many young. They were an irregular force, armed mostly with nothing but homemade weapons and machetes. Many wore gree-grees, lucky charms and talismans they believed made them invisible and bulletproof. Many of these guys are really, really poor villagers whose villages were attacked and they fought their way to the capital. One guy told us he fought 200 kilometers to get here, and they're not ready to leave until the president is out of office. The first fighter who could give us any answers about where the anti-Balaka stood was Commander Rambo. Surprisingly, he wasn't named after the movie character.
Bon, nous on ne peut pas à certaines dosages. S'il s'agit de certaines dosages, on ne peut pas venir dans ces conditions. Nous, nos problèmes, c'est pour que nos dosages partent avec ces mercenaires, c'est fini. On ne peut pas accepter de dosages. Jusqu'à présent, moi-même, je connais que Dosages n'est pas président. Parce que depuis qu'il était venu, il y a les tueries, on train de tuer des gens par là, par-ci. On ne peut pas accepter que Dosages comme président.
What do you think will happen in the future? Are you planning to attack soon?
Non, mais nous, on demande pour qu'il démissionne. S'il ne veut pas démissionner, on doit attaquer. On est prêt. On n'est pas dans une province, on n'est pas loin de Bangui. Là, on est prêt. On avait fait comment de venir ici. S'il ne veut pas quitter, il va quitter par la force.
NGOs had reported that there were up to 6,000 child soldiers in the conflict, and a lot of the fighters looked really, really young. One young man, who called himself B13, told us he was 15 but looked, well, 13. Why are you a fighter now? You're 15 years old. Why have you chosen to fight? What about your parents? What do they think of you fighting right now? The men in the camps had known very little peace since the arrival of the Seleka. They wanted things to go back to the way they were. What was your life like before the Seleka came, when you were with your family and when you were in your village?
Par rapport à tout ça, c'est les cagas. Binga comment peut-être un peu. Beke tega mena yezo la comme tenati gigit mebe. Affaire tu me que ça la tembe wala mena sumi vivre na menga timi. Binga comment peut ça tembe wala konya pe. Donc on tozo c'est les cagu mon femme. Moi tozo c'est les cagu mon femme. Binga comment peut du te ça ko to tia pe. Ngondola gumbi simili geti tembi chassala kina ndutala. Ta ki ndutala mi kiri mi sara yeso la mi que sara. Mi avancer devant.
For Angry Lion, his reasons for taking up arms was intensely personal. It wasn't just his livelihood the Seleka destroyed, it was his family. What future do you hope to see for your son? After hanging around this camp for a while, some of the higher-ups agreed to take us to another, more hidden camp. We hopped into a pickup truck with a bunch of fighters piling into the back and headed out, half wondering if they would make us safer or put us more at risk. A commander I affectionately named Bullethead agreed to escort us. We soon learned that the anti-Balaka weren't the most organized of forces. We just saw some irregular military justice. Apparently that guy was supposed to stand guard, and he saw us coming, he thought we were Seleka, and he ran away and just dropped his barrier. So the commanders weren't too fond of that, and they taught him a lesson. Shortly after we got underway again, we ran into another obstacle. Slight problem with the bridge the anti-Balaka just built for us. They had dug a trench over here to stop Seleka trucks from going in. Threw a little bit of wood on it to get our truck over it. Didn't quite work so well, so we're thinking of plan B right now. So the conversation right now is that we're about to head to another base, and there's a lot of armed men there, a lot of guns, and they're worried that if we show up in this pickup truck with fighters in the back, they're going to think we're the enemy or the Seleka or something, and bad things are going to happen. So they're sending a scout ahead to let them know that we're coming and that we're journalists and that it's friendly relations and not the enemy. Every village we drove through, people took off running, terrified, thinking we were the Seleka. Once they realized that we were the anti-Balaka, we were met with cheers and applause. Once we arrived at the other camp, it took a bit of schmoozing, but the commander agreed to give us an interview. We drove through the farmlands and people were cheering for the anti-Balaka. Do you have a lot of support from the civilians here?
Je pensais population à que pour Yeso Isara, parce que Yeso Seleka Sara à la fakodroti. Anti-Balaka a que rébellion peu. Anti-Balaka a que Yeso révolution nationale a que rébellion peu. Beni so comme à la kanga legena a tena la ti désarmé il sera mbeto kete il mati kuti baye so la kasara que a ka terroriste là a ga à présent à Canada République centrafricaine il lance appel so na la ba tena watakala mbitene a sara si la so opinion internationale le peuple centrafricain quoi vivre ni donc Yeso à Sarah, comme opinion internationale, à mot devant, tu tenais à défendre Kodroni, mais la banque de Timbi, à Niska, na Yeso, à la arrivée de Tissara désarmement, tant que il est tapé.
What will you do when this is all over?
Mbike Kuta, mécanicien Mingi. Depuis le 24 mars jusqu'à l'assaut, Bissara Kwapa. Mais Mbiti, tu n'as pas, c'est Bissara Kwapa. Iso Igazo. Igazo si fangoyaka akena miloti. Yunji kwani na kodroti sirira kiritawa. Zokoko Akir Naïsolo. Elle a fait le peuple centrafricain. Elle a violé Awali partout. Elle a pillé partout. C'est normal là pas. C'est pourquoi il sera en conjo. Tu tenais, il tombe là, en deux quadroti. Et il tombe là, ouais. Il wani. La force soit force française, soit Miska. Il n'a quoi, il est là. Il m'a dit qu'on a la titane. Il sera désarmement Tibangi.
Before we left, the commander had one last thing he wanted to say, an ominous warning for everyone in Bangui.
Dernier message Timbiti Mouni, opinion internationale. Et puis moi là en témoin que a famille Angbati Lango dans d'autres pistes. A famille Angbati Lango dans l'église et il venait que souffrir dans Tchingunda. Il m'a 48 heures. 48 heures. Donc on a le démissionnaire et il que sigi. Il que sigi et puis la duty responsable.
There were troops everywhere, but they weren't making much of a difference. It seemed like nothing could stop the inevitable. Despite the odds, there were some Central Africans in Bangui trying to stop their city from tearing itself apart. Jupiterek, a local NGO, was doing its best to urge reconciliation. Tell me about this clinic, why it's so special, and how it fits into your strategy of reconciliation.
What we have done is to take contact with community leaders, pastors, imams. We talk with them to encourage both Christians and Muslims to come here. And also in our team, we have both Christians, nurses, and Muslims, nurses also, which work together. We see that it is a strategy to build peace.
Do you think a place like this can help foster peace between the communities?
Même là, après que quoi, une population de place quoi, mon zarnangia, il y a quoi d'abord musulman, chrétien, quoi, une famille, quoi, il y a déjà la grande bénédiction contre qui.
Jupiterek gave us some hope, but they were facing incredible obstacles. They needed much more help, and it seemed like international support would soon be on its way. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Samantha Power, a strong proponent of humanitarian intervention, came to town a few days later to pledge support.
President Obama asked me to travel to the Central African Republic to show the people of the Central African Republic that America cares, that the United States is well aware of the suffering that has gone on across the country, but also that the United States wants to determine what it can do in order to support the path of stability, the path of reconciliation, and the path, of course, of a return to democracy in this country.
Do you think it sends a mixed message to stress the need for accountability while leaving Pretoria in office?
What is very important, I think, is that he and the other transitional leaders take steps to show the people that every crime committed here is one that this government takes seriously, whether that is a crime by Seleka militia or a crime by anti-Balaka. If those messages are not sent, there is a very real risk that the cycle of retribution and retaliation will take hold.
Right after Power spoke, we saw the president's family catching a flight to Benin, fleeing the country. For many in the Central African Republic, Power's words would not be enough. Anything short of removing the president from office would not be acceptable, and we were about to find out why.
Samantha Power just left. We got a call that the anti-Balaka are attacking now. So we're going to see what is happening. They've been telling us they're going to attack for a few days now.
We headed towards PK-12, where the attack was happening. It was about 5 p.m., and the curfew there was 6. So we figured we'd check it out and then go back to the hotel.
Oh, shit. Okay, follow, go.
We followed the French troops for a bit, then decided it would be wise to give them a little bit of distance before continuing. That's when we started running into trouble. We came up on a checkpoint that had just been set up. The anti-Balaka attack had been relatively minor, but the former Seleka, now masquerading as Chadi and Fomak, had responded by lighting up the surrounding areas with a ton of gunfire.
Stop, wait.
Oui, on est là.
C'est le Tchadien qui veut tuer tout nous.
C'est eux qui viennent.
C'est la Fomak Tchadien. Il est ici en Gobongo, il va tuer tout le monde ici. Le Fomak Tchadien qui a fait ça. Le Fomak Tchadien. Venez filmer.
Venez filmer s'il vous plaît.
Mon frère. Viens. Moi là-bas là.
Tirez deux personnes. Allez, tirez deux personnes.
Regardez maintenant.
Two men had been shot. We were trying to figure out how to get them to the hospital, but we were surrounded. We decided to load the wounded men into the truck and try to take them to the hospital. As soon as we got moving, we had to stop again. There was no safe way out.
Pardon, on peut aller, sinon on va mourir tous. J'ai mal au ventre. Lango. Le téléphone, il n'y a pas maîtrisé.
How do we get to the hospital?
We didn't really know where we were or how to get out. We were defenseless, so we tried to grab a white flag, hoping it would serve as some protection.
Where are the French when you need them?
Let's go.
Mon frère, Yor, on est quelque part, il parle d'une abri. À moi, abri. Nous sommes en insécurité, ok? Oui.
So,
what is the place? Mon frère, tu entends, non? Actuellement, il y a insécurité. Hein? Donc maintenant, alors, encercler du complet.
15 minutes after Samantha Power left, we talked about reconciliation. We were on the road. They were saying it was Chadi and Fomak, or ex-Seleka, started firing. We got trapped. We had to run in side streets. We took the car in. There were 2 wounded. We picked them up. We're trying to drive out of here, but there was more gunfire. We had to leave, and now we're hiding and waiting. The locals have been kind enough to help us out, show us where to go, but it's tense, and like this is what these people go through every night. It's terrifying.
Oui, ce sont des Fomak, ils se disent de Fomak, mais alors c'est des Fomak tchadiens. Donc c'est des Seleka qui se sont portés en uniforme Fomak pour tirer sur la population civile. Oui, les Français sont partis vers PK12, donc ils ne sont pas là, donc la population est en danger pour le moment.
After it got dark, a few locals told us they could show us a back road to a nearby church, where we would be safe and the wounded men could receive treatment. We set off on foot towards the church. If we didn't see the Seleka along the way, we would call the driver and tell them it was safe. So we went off into the darkness. We finally got to the church. There were already tons of people hiding out there. We called the truck and they arrived soon after.
À la 4, pardon, 4. À la chaud.
A short while later, we were told that the men in the back didn't make it. A few weeks after we left, President Joe Todia stepped down from office and a new president was elected. Many members of the Seleka fled north, continuing to attack. The anti-Balaka increased their attacks against Muslim civilians. Brutal lynchings became routine. Bangi's Muslim population dwindled from around 130,000 to less than 1,000. The United Nations reported that the entire western part of the country has been cleansed of Muslims and is now debating deploying a peacekeeping operation. The time we spent in the Central African Republic really was a major turning point in the conflict. When the French troops came in to put a stop to the Seleka's reign of terror, it was a welcome sight for many. But everyone underestimated the anti-Balaka. And despite them promising that they would drop their weapons after the Seleka left, they proved to be just as destructive. The UN sending peacekeepers would be a step in the right direction, but it could be a long time before Muslims are safe again in Bangui. And an even longer time before those who are forced to leave can come back.
Là, ça va, ouais, mais bon,